I created a PowerPoint called Rule 0. The GM is always right. Because that is my hill that I'm going to die upon.
I feel attacked.
Well, then, if you already feel attacked, just buckle up, baby. I just want to say I'm not attacking any particular person of any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I'm just saying this is the hill I'm going to die on.
Okay, great.
I have gone into
Respect this.
chats. I've gone into forums. I've gone to Reddit, and I've discussed these things with peoples. So, all right.
Chat, be noisy during this. I want to hear y'all's feedback as it's coming in.
Yeah.
For all of these things. All right.
Yes, the subtitle is the subtitle is on the clickbaity side. They may not be a god, but it's still fair game. So STFU.
Love this. I love this energy that you're bringing here. All right,
No,
ready?
that did not come to play.
All right.
Next slide. The unspoken rules of TTRPGs. These are apparently there's a canon. Rule 0. The GM always has the last word. Rule -1. A player can always leave the game. So the DM should really be prudent in the exercise of Rule 0. Rule -2. However, it's harder for a player to find a new table than for a GM to find new players. So players should be prudent in the exercise of Rule -1. And then finally, all dwarves must have Scottish accents. Right, Graham?
That's pretty fair.
Nice. So those are the rules, and that's what Rule 0 is. This being said, next, a DM should not think of himself or themselves as having the right of Rule 0. It's just a way to control the game, certain rules in the game. A GM should instead think of themselves as having the responsibility of controlling the game, and therefore being given the Rule 0 to help with that, right? Because ultimately, that is what Rule 0 is, a tool given to the GM to keep the game fun, engaging, and moving. It's not a right to do whatever they like to the people playing with them. That's not what we're saying here. In other words, Rule 0 is not a matter of with great power comes great responsibility, but rather the reverse of that. With great responsibility comes great power. Right? Does that make sense?
So much sense.
I came up with this one myself. Yeah. There is no I in invest.
But there is an M and an E.
I wish I'd thought of that. Perfect. A good GM is on your side.
True.
Right? But please just understand, just keep it in your head. The GM has done a lot of work to get the game going today. A lot. And wants the game to be challenging and increasing stakes. And therefore, it's their table, it's their rules, right? Good GMs are just trying to tell the best story, so it's their table for the moment. It's totally up to the way that you, as a GM, can come to the table and do your own thing. Because next, a bad GM will soon have an empty table.
Because Rule -1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. However, there are valid reasons to contest Rule 0, I think.
Oh.
Number one, I think if your GM uses it too much, you have responsibility. This is not about ultimate control of power. Secondly, you can tell that your GM doesn't understand your intent in the game. There's been some kind of obvious miscommunication during the table. However, in my mind, this does not include the player's personal interpretation of a spell or a feat or any other rules lore type thing. Now that's the most controversial statement I'm going to say today, but I really believe it because I feel like this takes you out of the game. It breaks the immersion and so on and so forth. If the GM has not gone over their personal home rules with you, that's also a very valid reason. You know, it's like, hey, You only have 2 death saves. No, you should have told the people that beforehand.
No moving the
fair.
goalposts in the middle of
No
the game.
moving the goalposts.
None of that.
And then finally, your GM is just never prepared. And it's obvious, and they're never prepared ever. And you're just like, oh, come on, man. This is ridiculous.
Come on, man.
So, my last point is kind of based on the last slide, which is just try not to lame the game. That's another quote by me. What do you guys
I
think?
actually
like
really
lame
like
the
game.
that.
Lame the game.
I
I
like
do.
that
I
as
do.
more than I like rule of cool. Don't lame the
Yeah,
game.
don't
I
lame the
love
game.
that.
Don't lame the game. Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking. Contesting a GM in game takes everybody out. It takes the GM out, which is okay. But it takes everybody out. So that's not as much fun. If you have an issue, just say out of game, hey GM, I just have to say this is really bugging me. This is really, annoying. You could be as direct as you want at that point. But that's again out of game, and that makes sense to me. And then another thing I thought was, what if there was a preferred way to kind of whisper to a GM? And again, in the cases that I mentioned in the last slide, where oh well, no, you just didn't understand what I meant. This is what I mean. I think you didn't hear me or whatever correctly. So here's what I was trying to do. So the takeaway from this is my last slide, which is I feel like I have another hill to die on, and I believe that all players
Agreed.
should GM at least one game
Yep.
in their life.
Yep.
And I'm just saying that because I feel that it is a transformative experience for all players.
Yep.
Understanding wise, patience wise, and rules wise,
Yeah.
right? I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you. That's my powerful. Started off very serious. I took this very seriously.